in Nashville for about 50 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Lee Woods, and I'm the president of Bookman Bookwoman Books, Tennessee's largest used bookstore, and a columnist for the Nashville City Paper. You can find out more about us at our website, bookmanbookwoman.com. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce one of our most unique writers. Dr. Dorothy Marcic is on the faculty at Vanderbilt's Olin Graduate School of Management, and she is a former Fulbright Scholar at the University of Economics in Prague. Traveling around the United States and the world as a speaker and performer, Dorothy has presented to more than 1,000 groups, and she has worked in the media, including Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. She is the author of 12 books with a combined sale of $500,000, including Managing with the Wisdom of Love and my favorite, Respect, Women in Popular Music. She is currently turning her book lecture into a theater piece, and you will see today a work in progress. Joining Dorothy today are Adrian Ewing-Roush, Emily Price, Rachel Price, and on the piano, Kevin Medill. You are in for a real treat. Please join me in welcoming Dorothy Marcic.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dr. Dorothy Marcic. No, I'm not that kind of doctor, actually a professor of management, whatever that means. I can't help you with your earache, but I might be able to help you hear with a new perspective or see with a new eye. I've been doing research in the last few years on the voice of women in popular music. Looking at top 40, I took all the songs that women sang in the 20th century and analyzed the lyrics. And what I learned about women from popular music, about their role in society, the home, and the workplace, I'll be sharing with you today. I spent my early years inhabiting the late 50s and the early 60s. I listened to a lot of radio, watched television, bought records. What were the messages I heard back then? Things like, as long as he needs me, or alone, so alone that I could cry, I wanna be wanted. Or how about, where the boys are, someone waits for me. And don't forget, stand by your man. But then if you fast forward to the late 80s and early 90s, you can see how far we've come. By then, popular music had women being urged to get on their feet and make it happen, with or without a man. From the time in 1900, when we went from being property of our husbands, to the end of the century, when we became presidents of corporations, it was quite a journey, and that's the voyage we'll take today. And you can see and hear how it happened by listening to Top 40. And the reason I chose Top 40 is because songs that are well-liked by the society at large become an inkblot test we can hold up to ourselves to see our values and who we have been and who we are. So I'd like you to close your eyes now and imagine what life must have been like for women around 1900. Life was grim. We could be beaten silly by our husbands. There was no legal consequence, no law against it. Only a handful of us went to college. But finally, we were allowed to participate in the Olympics, even if it was only 19 women in 2 events, tennis and golf. No javelin or shot put for us back then. Then the earth shifted. In 1919, after the suffragists had struggled for 70 years, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, giving women the right to vote. This victory was immediately seen as a threat. There was a fear that us brassy, man-hating feminists were going to take over. Sound familiar? Society needed reassurance that we would not revolt en masse, and it got some help from musical theater. Consider the George and Ira Gershwin song from the Broadway hit OK from 1926. There's a somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that he turns out to be someone who'll watch over me. I'm a little lamb who's lost in the wood. I know I could always be good to one who'll watch over me. Well, which little lamb lost in the wood is going to upset the status quo? The message from that song was, please take care of me because I'm helpless. The flappers might have seemed independent, but they were considered floozies, or less than virtuous women. Good women were dependent. And then the stock market crashed in 1929, bringing 10 years of worldwide depression and a lot of escapist entertainment. One of the most famous singers of the day is a now obscure woman named Helen Kane. But she was so well liked back then that she became the role model for the 1930s cartoon character, Betty Boop. Oi, Betty Boop, I was so popular back then. People just loved me. I mean, it was really wonderful. And I just think the reason I was so popular, they said, was because I was one teensy pot, Shirley Temple, and 3 gigantic pots come up and see me sometime, Mae West. And I sure didn't have any big fortune from my intellect. One of my favorite sayings was, I try to think, but nothing happens, which tells you something about the ideal girls of the 30s. I hope you like my favorite song. I want to be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. I want to be loved by you alone. Boop, boop-be-doop. I want to be kissed by you, just you, nobody else but you. I want to be kissed by you alone. I wouldn't aspire to anything higher than feel the desire to make you my own. Boop, boop-be-doop. Oh, imagine trying to educate a woman such as I, someone with such teensy little goals. But you know what? It fit the time back then. There was something back then called the Gallup poll. I don't really know what it is. I don't think it has to do with horses, though. But this Gallup poll said that 82% of the population, they believed that married women, we shouldn't work if our husbands did. We were seen as thieving parasites. And when we did work, we suffered terrible wage discrimination. Oh! And caused us to organize. In 1937, a Brazil Company Workers Union started, and 3 years later, they led a strike. They said that they wanted an uplift in wages because the company kept them flat busted. Well, that was how it was. But let me tell you, then the 1940s came. World War II was waged. Men went off to war, and women got a little power. We felt a little power because we went into the offices and the factories. Someone had to keep the country going. So we had a momentary blip in what they now call codependent theme of songs. And so 1942 brought us Dinah Shore with her #4 song, telling us what men are really like. Dinah Shore, my song, owed a lot to the black blues singers who'd been singing this theme for decades. There was Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Ella Fitzgerald, and Billie Holiday. Yes, they really were my role models. I could have never sung the song if they hadn't come before me. My mama done told me when I was in pigtails. My mama done told me man's gonna sweet talk and give you the glad eye. But when that sweet talking's done, a man is a two-face, a worrisome thing, will leave you to sing the blues in the night. So, World War II ended. It was great for the cause of world peace, but not so great for the cause of women's equality. Even though 85% of us wanted to keep our jobs, in 1945, 6 million of us were fired. And gone too were songs about women wanting freedom or men being two-faced. Instead, in 1946, we had songs about women being stupid, such as the song from Annie, Get Your Gun, number 3. Folks are dumb where I come from. You don't have to know how to read or write when you're out with the fellow in the pale moonlight. How about my, Dinah Shore, my number 10 song that said a girl's skill wasn't important, only her charm. A girl can learn to spell and take dictation well and never sit on the boss's settee unless she learns how to use her personality. So don't just say I'm smart or have the kindest heart or what a wonderful sister I'd be. Just tell me how you like my personality. Do you know, after the war, movies also had a negative reaction to the wartime strength of women. In 1945, there was Joan Crawford as Mildred Pierce. Mildred Pierce, she was a successful businesswoman. But what was the result? She was a terrible mother, not to mention a man-eater. The entire film noir period focused on the character of the evil and deceitful woman. Strong and dominant were synonymous with evil and immoral. Remember all those movies with Ida Lupino, Bette Davis, Joan Crawford? Well, instead of the predatory Joan Crawford, the preferable messages back then were as woman as compliant and dependent. Oh, Eileen Barton hit number 1 in 1950 with her song, If I Knew You Were Coming, I'd Have Baked a Cake. It was about a woman such as me at home happily doing domestic chores. When a friend drops by, ding dong, and there I have become so apologetic because I'm not the paragon of hospitality, which is, of course, what women are supposed to do. Well, compliance and passivity were the theme of some of the most popular TV shows of that time. Leave It to Beaver, The Donna Reed Show, Make Room for Daddy, Ozzie and Harriet. What did we see? Mother, crisply attired in a starched apron, elaborately cooked dinners, heartily packed lunches. All while Mom, me, I'm teary and doting. No hint of PMS or menopause. Never. No, I was just compliant and dependent. And this was a time when, the Cleavers, yes. Some of us, such as me, didn't have the stable home life of the Cleavers or the Nelsons. But you know, when I was a little girl, back in the late 50s, I so wanted that to be my reality. I sang over and over again with Debbie Reynolds, Tammy, Tammy, Tammy's in love. And I agreed with Patience and Prudence that tonight you belong to me. And I rushed home every day from school to watch my idol Annette on the Mickey Mouse Club. Oh, I loved her so much in her hair. And I bought her first hit single, Tall Paul, he's my all, Tall Paul. Oh, it was a time when girls were girls and boys. I think it had something to do with during the war. men were gone, dreaming about us girls back home. So feminine we'd be. Oh, it was a time of rigid gender stereotypes, and not an accident that Mattel introduced the Barbie doll around that time. So here's a song from Flower Drum Song. I'm a girl, and by me that's only great. I am proud that my silhouette is curvy, that I walk with a sweet and girlish gait, with my hips kinda swivelly and swervy. I adore being dressed in something frilly. When my date comes to get me at my place, out I go with my Joe or John or Billy or Ken, like a filly who is ready for the race. When I have a brand new hairdo with my eyelashes all in curl, I float as the clouds on air do. I enjoy being a girl. When men say I'm cute and funny, and my teeth aren't teeth but pearls, I just lap it up like honey. I enjoy being a girl. I flip when a fella sends me flowers. I drool over dresses made of lace. I talk on the telephone for hours with a pound and a half of cream upon my face. I'm strictly a female, and my future, I hope, will be in the home of a brave and free male who enjoy being a guy, having a girl like me. So now, let's think about this. The very intelligent thing to do for someone dependent as I would be to make sure that whoever she leans on would be economically comfortable, or shall we say rich. So we had songs about the gold digger. First there was Sweet Charity, and then there was Marilyn Monroe, who was a bit of the innocent wave and a bit seductress. A modern day Betty Boop, who tells us girls how to survive in this cruel and cold world. Kiss on the hands. Kiss on the hands may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender. Hey, big spender! Spend a little time with me. So there's got to be some reaction to all this powerlessness that women had. Women started realizing that the one power they did have over men was sex. But what if a woman has this sexual power? She uses it and still loses her man. This was a woman's fear and the theme of a Carole King song around that time. And you're going to hear a reminiscence. These are some reminiscences from my book that are taken from real life stories. We're going to have several of them.
On July 14th, 1959, I turned 14, and the next month I lost my virginity. His name was Billy, and he was 17 and also a virgin. And the standard line from the boy was, "If you love me, you'll do it." So we did it. And after we did it, he seemed to have an instant aversion to me. Aversion wasn't even part of my vocabulary at that time. I didn't even know what that meant. But it did explain how I felt. But I couldn't understand why it was I seemed to make him feel sick to his stomach. Anyway, we broke up, and he asked for his ring back, the one I had been wearing around my neck on a long chain for a very long time. It was terribly humiliating, and I suffered for 18 months. I wanted to die, truly die. And I don't think I've ever felt any pain quite that devastating since that time. Now, please know that I don't really recall a time when I felt like a girl, a young girl. But whenever people said things like, well, you know, you lost your innocence, that was really the time when I began to feel like a little girl. A lost, alone, abandoned, aching child, looking for someone, my mother perhaps, to find me. All of the songs that impacted me in my early life really did revolve around that abandonment. I can remember listening to the 45 records over and over and over again. It was almost like I was trying to make myself cry harder and harder and feel the pain more intensely. I remember songs like Come Softly to Me and Mr. Blue by the Fleetwoods. These were two songs that opened the floodgates and kept this little girl crying hour after hour. Was it natural for me to want to feel the pain more intensely? Did I feel guilty down in my soul? Now, you have to understand there was a public crucifixion for young girls who were said to put out. And even if you were in a steady boyfriend, girlfriend, monogamous, whatever you want to call it, kind of relationship, it still meant that you put out. For boys, on the other hand, it was mandatory to lose your virginity. They were supposed to do it, expected to do it. It was kind of like a rite of passage, if you will. Something to celebrate. Wow, how wonderfully sanctimonious. He was sexually baptized, and I was a slut. You know, I think about that and I wonder, how many Billies were there? Was it natural for him to feel such repugnance for me? Did I make him feel guilty in his soul? Tonight you're mine completely. You give your love so sweetly. Tonight the light of love is in your eyes. But will you love me tomorrow? Sha-la-la-la, 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 sha-la-la-la. Is this lasting treasure? Or just a moment? Pleasure. Can I believe the magic of your sighs? Will you still love me tomorrow? Will you still love me tomorrow?
Then the 1960s came. The teenagers took over. There were 78 million baby boomers. It was the first generation with money to spend. They were buying records, listening to the radio. And when they spent money on music, they didn't want to listen to their mother's singers, you know, Patti Page, Dinah Shore. They wanted cool and hip singers, even if they were all saying the same thing initially, you know, I'll do anything for you, go anywhere for you. I will follow him. You can sing along. Follow him wherever he may go. There isn't an ocean too deep, a mountain so high it asks her what she's going to do with the rest of her life. She just graduated from high school. When people ask of me, what would you like to be? Now that you're not a kid anymore, I know just what to say. I answer right away. There's just one thing I've been wishing for. Sing, come on. I wanna be Bobby's girl. I wanna be Bobby's girl. That's the most important thing to me. And if I was Bobby's girl, if I was Bobby's girl, what a faithful, thankful girl I'd be. Of course, if you listen to the rest of the lyrics, you'll find out that Bobby already had a girlfriend. This does not deter Marcy Blaine. This is a woman, actually it used to call them girls, with a goal. She was going to achieve that goal no matter what. Well, now, 1968 was a year that a song came out, hit number 3, that I'm embarrassed to say was exactly the way I was with boys in high school and college. You know how you wait by the phone, waiting for him to call, sitting by the phone, hoping that it's gonna ring, and then my brother gets on making him hang up, and then just waiting so pathetically, and every now and then picking up the phone to make sure the dial tone works, hanging up right away, because he might call in that split second. Remember, those were the days when you're afraid to go outside to get the mail? Because what if he called when you're gone and you didn't get back in time? And of course, he's never gonna call again, never. I admit it, I was needy. This song, I kind of think Vicky Carr sang this song for me. I tell myself what's done is done. Who cares? Let him stay away. Play the field, have a lot of fun. It's easy when you play it cool. I tell myself, don't be a chump. Who cares? Let him stay away. That's when the phone rings, and I jump. And as I grab the phone, I pray, let it please be him. Oh, dear God, it must be him. It must be him, or I shall die. Or I shall die. Hello, hello, my dear God, it must be him. But it's not him. And then I die. Again, I die. Oh, it's so exhausting being codependent. Oh. Well, you know, we're ready to follow him everywhere, do whatever he wants, be under his thumb, maybe let him beat us up a little bit like Fanny Brice talked about in her 1922 song. But we do not want to sit by the phone pathetically like that for him to call. It's very demeaning, even if we are codependent. We need some advice on how to behave so he will stick around. So a song from the Queen of Country helped. Became an anthem for women in many places. Sometimes it's hard to be a woman, giving all your love to just one man. You'll have bad times, and he'll have good times, doing things you don't understand. But if you love him, you'll forgive him, even though he's hard to understand. And if you love him, oh, be proud of him, 'cause after all, he's just a man. Please sing. Stand by a man, give when nights are cold and lonely. Stand by your man and show the world you love him. Keep giving all the love you can. Stand by your man. Okay, so we stand by him and he still leaves. He dumps us. This was a recurring theme in the songs throughout the century that I did research on. He dumped me. In 1963, the reaction was, I just can't go on, my life is over. Later, when women get some strength in the music, you'll see that changes. But in 1963, here's Skeeter Davis, who now lives in Nashville. Why does the sun go on shining? Why does the sea rush to shore? Sing. Don't they know it's the end of the world? 'Cause you don't love me anymore. Why do the birds go on singing? Why do the stars glow above? Don't they know it's the end of the world? It ended when I lost your love. I wake up in the morning and I wonder why everything's the same as it was. I can't understand, no, I can't understand how life goes on the way it does. Oh. But now things are going to change. In the 60s, something started happening. The women and minority movement started gaining momentum. There was Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Betty Friedan. There was a feeling that we didn't want to accept this inferior status anymore. Maybe it wasn't so good just to follow him wherever he went. And I think the first song that best captures us pushing back by women and minorities was Leslie Gore's. You don't own me. I'm not just one of your many toys. You don't own me. Don't say I can't go with other boys. I don't tell you what to say, and I don't tell you what to do. So just let me be myself. That's all I ask of you, 'cause you don't own me. So now we went from compliant doormat to teenage rebel. And all the floodgates of anger and resentment that had been building up for decades and even centuries came rushing forth. And what did it become? Revenge. Best described in this 1968 song. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. My husband, who's sitting right here, told me that that's the song that really scared men. So we're getting angry, pushing back. There's a sliver of strength starting to come forth. It's still angry because, we had a lot of anger to deal with. It took us a while to get past that. But there were some songs about strength, even if they were angry, but at least women were looking to themselves to solve their problems rather than relying on a man to do everything.
The song that has affected me most in my life is I Am Woman. I used to, shall we say, kowtow to the male gender. I was raised in a predominantly male family with an old-fashioned mom, 6 siblings, 4 guys, and 2 girls, with 17 years between the girls. Need I say more? I spent most of my life fetching this and tending to that and excusing for myself and apologizing to the men in my family. A woman's place is in the home, seen and not heard. It's not ladylike, etc. I heard this song on the radio, and I was filled with a new zeal, an enthusiasm, a new outlook on life. I realized that I didn't have to just settle for being taken for granted, for being pushed around, for just, wanting to be myself and let my color show. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend, 'cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever gonna keep me down again. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Oh yes, I've paid the price, but look how much I've gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong. I am invincible. I am woman.
Now that we're starting to get a little feisty, this old idea of he dumped me wasn't such a big deal anymore. Remember in 1963, Skeeter Davis's "End of the world, 'cause you don't love me anymore"? Well, in the late 60s and early 70s, along came two African-American women to teach us how to stand tall. First, there was Aretha demanding some R-E-S-P-E-C-T. And then, in the 1970s came another "He Dumped Me" song, but this one was different. This one was not "End of the World." It was showing how Gloria Gaynor was telling us how we could survive without him. First I was afraid, I was petrified, kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. I spent so many nights feeling sorry for myself. I used to cry. Now I hold my head up high, you see me, somebody new. I'm not that chained up little person still in love with you. And so you felt like dropping in and expect me to be free. Well, I'm saving all my loving for someone who's loving me. Go on now, walk out the door, just turn around now, 'cause you're not welcome anymore. Weren't you the one who tried to hurt me with goodbye? Did I crumble? Did I lay down and die? Oh, not I will survive. Oh, as long as I know how to love, I know I'll be alive. I've got all my life to live. I've got all my love to give. I'll survive. I will survive. That feels better than "End of the World, 'cause you don't love me anymore." I'm starting to feel some of this strength. We're almost into the era of women having inner strength in popular music, but we've got one segue song. What happened in the 70s and 80s is that women started to notice that we didn't have equality with men, What a revelation. And one thing that was different was that there was a double standard. When I was in college, girls had to go be in the dorms a certain time and boys didn't. So the idea was, how come they get to do whatever they want and we are supposed to be protected? 1984, Cyndi Lauper gave us a song that told us what girls want now. I come home in the morning like my mother says, when you gonna live your life right? Oh, mother dear, we're not the fortunate ones, and girls, they wanna have fun. Oh, girls just wanna have fun. Okay, now we're at the late 80s. It's time for women in popular music to grow up. Mind you, we had to go through that developmental phase of childish dependency to teenage rebel, but now it's time to be a full adult responsible for our own well-being. One of the first songs that was about that inner strength was Whitney Houston's song, 1986, Greatest Love of All, where she says, I learned to depend on me, and They can't take away my dignity. Sounds more mature, doesn't it, than I will follow him and someone to watch over me. And then in 1993 came a song that was, in my field of management, we call internal locus of control, which means I'm in charge. I'm not waiting for a man to do everything for me anymore. There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of who you are. There's an answer. If you reach into your soul, and the sorrow that you know will melt away. Yes, we can have power, we can have fun, and for the first time in the history of the world, women en masse have more opportunities than ever. Think how far we've come in 100 years. At the beginning of the century, we were property of our husbands, unable to vote. By the end of the century, we were presidents of corporations and able to vote in every country where men did, except for Kuwait. We were forbidden to enter law and medicine over 100 years ago, and now we make up about half of the graduating classes. Half of the managers are women. Many, many successes that we've come, even though there are great barriers ahead. But we're moving in the right direction. And I think about my grandmother. My grandmother came from Norway when she was 16 years old at the early 1900s. And she used to say to me, Dorothy, you have so many opportunities for education and travel that I never had. And she was right. She couldn't speak English when she first came. She was a maid. My own 3 daughters, their life is so much more filled with opportunities than mine was. So how much different from my grandmother? Well, let me tell you how different mine was from theirs. I grew up in a little town called Pewaukee, Wisconsin, 17 miles from Milwaukee. We never went to Milwaukee. It was far away, 17 miles. We didn't have a telephone, but if we did, we would never have called Milwaukee. It was long distance. Now I have daughters, one's in England, one just got back from a year in South Africa, another one's in Montana. They have cell phones, they're calling me from South Africa, England, Australia, flying around the world more than as a little girl I went that 17 miles from Pewaukee to Milwaukee. It's a whole new world, and the Dixie Chicks sing this final song that I think speaks to new opportunities for young women. It's a new world and a better one.
Who doesn't know what I'm talking about? Who's never left home? Who's never struck out to find a dream and a life of their own? A place in the clouds, a foundation of stone. Many proceed and many will follow. A young girl's dream no longer hollow. It takes the shape of a place out west. But what it holds for her, she hasn't yet guessed. She needs wide open spaces and room to make a big mistake. She needs new faces. She knows the high stakes. She traveled this road as a child. Wide-eyed and grinning, she never tired. But now she won't be coming back with the rest. If these are life's lessons, then she'll take the test. She needs wide open spaces and room to make a big mistake. She needs new faces. She knows the high stakes. She knows the
Thanks. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Dorothy today? Yes.
Actually, I've got a comment and a question. The comment is Flower Drum Song was revived this year in San Francisco, and they got permission. The people doing the revival got permission from the Rodgers and Hammerstein estate to change a little bit of the book. And they also kept I Enjoy Being a Girl, but presented it in a more feminist light, as this woman is singing it in a more affirmation kind of way of freedom and liberation, rather than being demure and all that. So interesting how a little inflection and change the context a little bit can make a difference there. One person you didn't mention, and I'd like to know your take on her, is Madonna.
I thought you were going to ask about Britney Spears. Everybody asks about her. Well, Madonna started out as probably the rebellious teenage. That's how she came out, and breaking every rule imaginable, and pretty shocking. She's turned into a more mature woman. It's hard to say how much of it is marketing, how much of it is really her. Sometimes you don't know what the spin is and where the reality is. But I think if you look at the model that I have in my book, she really follows that teenage rebel. And one of the parts of the model that I left out because of time here is a young adult cynic. She went through the cynical phase too. One of her songs that I talk about in my book is Material Girl, which is a really cynical song. And then she went to the adult stage. So she kind of patterned what this was going. But I'll answer the question you didn't ask about Britney Spears, because people ask about that a lot. Britney Spears, to me, is a modern-day Betty Boop. The baby voice and the scantily clad. There seems to be a need in the culture to have a Betty Boop figure. We had Marilyn Monroe in the 50s and Britney Spears. And her messages are, you look at the lyrics, they're throwback to the 50s and before that, the very codependent. And I know a lot of people, I've read articles that say, oh, there's so many codependent songs, it's worse than ever. But I counted every song that women sang in the 20th century. And even though there are a lot of codependent songs now, the percentage of them is about half of what it was when it peaked in the 50s. And it started really declining from the 70s when women started getting more power in society and the workplace. I think of popular music as a lagging indicator. It's slightly behind what's happening in society. Yes?
Do you talk about Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton didn't actually get any top 40 songs. Oh, she did 9 to 5, yes. She's more country. I only looked at top 40 songs, but her 9 to 5 song was, I considered part of the cynical era, because it was in that time frame where there was a lot of cynical songs. It was, what's the point of working? The boss is just going to take everything I try to do. And there were a lot of songs in the late 70s and early 80s. Janis Ian had, at 17, you know, Love is Made for Beauty Queen. There was Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It? And so I think Dolly Parton is in with that. Although I don't think of her as primarily a cynical singer. That was one song that was in there. Thank you. Thanks.
I'd like to ask Dr. Marcic what song has moved her most?
Oh, you know, I got to tell you. Yeah, I love all these songs. You know, even the codependent ones, I love them all. And one of my friends, Jenny Carter-Thomas, who actually teaches with Don Cusick at Belmont University, after she read the book, she said, Dorothy, how did we ever manage to survive out of the 60s with all those codependent, needy songs? So, I mean, I still relate to them, but the songs that, when I hear them, I kind of get my juice going. I Will Survive is one, Greatest Love of All. There's some of the new singers. I can't say that the songs are in my brain as much, but I'm so in awe of India Arie, Alicia Keys, who are singing about strength with women. They're managing their own careers, and they're really the anti-Britney Spears. I think there's going to be more of the Alicia Keys and India Aries than there are of Britney Spears. So.
Thank you again, Marcic. Me again, Sarah Lee Woods from bookmanbookwoman.com. Again, the book is Respect, Women in Popular Music. If Dr. Marcic has not been to your city, you are missing out on a real treat. She is just one of the best speakers. We've been so fortunate to be able to have her today.
Dorothy Marcic is author of Respect, Women in Popular Music. It's published by Texere on the web at etexere.com.